My name's Ramona Bertrand, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm starting a series of videos on how to use food storage items. And I thought we'd start today with powdered milk. It's actually called non-fat dry milk. And there's a difference between non-fat dried milk regular and non-fat dried milk instant. The instant, there should be instant written somewhere on the package. The way you can tell is by feel and look at them. The feel of regular non-fat dried milk is very powdery. If you pick it up, it's very smooth, like flour or cornstarch, very powdery. But the instant non-fat dried milk, it's very granular. If you let it fall off a spoon, there's little granules in there, and if you feel it, it's pretty gritty. So that's how you can tell if it's instant with little grits in there or non-instant and it's just powdery. The reason you need to know for sure which kind you have is the powdered is denser, so it doesn't take as much. So if you're going to make 1 quart of milk, so I've got 1 quart, almost a quart of milk here. The milk powder displaces a little bit of the water, so use just slightly less. You only need 2/3 of a cup of the non-instant powdered milk. And if you're going to make the instant, it takes 1 1/4 cups of the powder to make it. So let's mix some up. So I have 3 3/4 cups of water in this pitcher. And I'm going to add 1 1/3 cups of the instant powdered milk. So this was already pre-measured out. That's 1 1/3 cups. And if you can come a little closer and look inside this container. All I'm doing is stirring with a spoon. It does make some bubbles, but it just instantly dissolves into milk right there. Now with the non-instant non-fat dried milk, this is like powder. If you're not careful, it will poof everywhere. So you very carefully pour that into some water, and I use a whisk, not just a spoon, to dissolve this into the water. So I'm pouring that in there. You might be able to see some of the powder poofing up, and you whisk it to try to get it mixed in. It's still pretty quick. It's pretty much dissolved now, but on the whisk you can see some little clumps. It tends to be a little more clumpy than the instant kind. Now, what can you do with this milk now? Well, for one, you can just drink it. You can pour it into a cup and drink it, just like regular milk. But this is the equivalent of skim milk. There's no fat in it. If you're used to drinking 2% milk, 2% milk has 5 grams of fat in 1 cup of milk. And this has no fat in it. It's non-fat dried milk. If you want it to taste better, for one, chill it. It's much better after it's sat in the refrigerator overnight. But if it's still just not creamy enough for you and you don't like the taste of it, you can turn it into 2% milk. 1 cup of cream, this is heavy whipping cream, regular cream. If you add that to a cup of non-fat dry milk, now you've got the equivalent of 2% milk. So it's going to taste a lot richer because it's got the fat added back in. Not that I'm promoting you to add more fat, because if you can just acclimate your taste to get used to just drinking the skim milk, that'll give you a lot less calories and be a little better for you. But if you just don't like the taste of the powdered milk and you want to flavor it somehow, you can always put some chocolate in there and turn it into chocolate milk or hot cocoa. That's a really tasty way to use it. Or you can turn it into pudding. So I'm just going to mix up some pudding here. I bought some instant pudding at the store, and you just take 2 cups of milk, pour in your pudding powder. Stir that up. Once you've got that mixed in there, this just instantly thickens itself. So you could just pour it into a little glass and have some pudding for dessert. Or what my kids used to really like is I would make pudding pops. So before it gets all the way stiff, if you pour it into a popsicle mold, and put the lid on it there, you can just put that in the freezer, and in a few hours when that's frozen solid, you've got pudding pops. Those are really yummy. Another thing that kids really like is peanut butter Play-Doh. And I don't use measurements on this, I just eyeball it. I take a scoop of peanut butter and some honey, and anywhere from half the amount of honey, honey to peanut butter ratio up to equal parts, however sweet you like it. And you just mix those together till you've got a creamy peanut butter honey mixture. And then you add the powdered milk to it. And I just use the non-instant kind for this. You can use the instant kind, but since it's a little granular, you will have a little bit of granules in it. So the non-instant kind actually works in better. And you just work that in there. This is still pretty runny, so I'm going to add a little more. And what you're looking for is it will get to the consistency of Play-Doh. So just make sure your kids wash their hands before they eat it. They can play with it, shape it into shapes, and then they can eat their Play-Doh afterwards. This was a favorite of my kids to play with and eat when they were little. And when they got big enough that they weren't really playing with Play-Doh anymore, they would still make it just for a snack because it's really tasty. And there you have the consistency of Play-Doh. You could probably mix a little bit more powdered milk into that to make it a little thicker, but it's thick enough to make a nice Play-Doh texture to eat and enjoy.